A lot of you had great questions after my last video on taking the age pension overseas, especially about that tricky 2-year portability rule. So in this video, I'm diving deeper and answering the 5 most frequently asked questions. First, a quick recap of the 2-year portability rule. Essentially, if a person lived overseas, returned to Australia to live, started receiving the age pension after their return, and then leaves Australia again within 2 years of their return day, their pension payments will stop while they are overseas. The purpose of this rule is to discourage people from returning to Australia solely to qualify for the age pension and then immediately moving back overseas with the pension. Does the 2-year portability rule apply to individuals who have always lived in Australia and claim the age pension? No, the 2-year rule only applies to former residents returning to Australia. If someone has always lived in Australia and qualifies for the age pension, they can generally leave the country soon after approval and keep receiving payments overseas. However, they still need to follow the standard overseas rules, including notifying Centrelink and understanding how the rate or supplements may be affected by time spent abroad. Watch this video for full details. Can I go on holidays during the 2 years? According to the Social Security Guide, payment may be suspended for short overseas absences during the 2-year period and does not have to be reclaimed on return to Australia. A short absence from Australia, as long as the person is still classed as an Australian resident, will not impact on the end date of the 2-year period. That is, the absence still counts towards the person's 2-year period. In essence, short trips overseas during the 2-year period is allowed. The Social Security Guide does not specify exactly how long or how often you can go, but the key is that such absence must be temporary and you still need to be considered an Australian resident during that absence. If you are planning to travel during this time, it might be a good idea to check with Centrelink to see how your absence might affect your 2-year compliance. How is the 2-year period actually counted? Many people mistakenly think that the 2-year period starts when the age pension begins, but it actually starts from the day they return to Australia with the intention to live here for the foreseeable future. That day is counted as day 1, and the 2-year period runs for a full 24 months. The Social Security Guide clarifies that the 2-year period includes as separate 4 days the day on which the recipient returns to Australia to resume Australian residence, and the day on which they leave again. Can a former Australian resident who has lived overseas apply for the age pension as soon as they return to Australia? Yes, a former Australian resident who returns from overseas with the intention to live in Australia permanently can apply for the age pension as soon as they are physically present in Australia and meet the definition of Australian resident at the time of claim. There is no additional waiting period to claim the age pension even if they have been away for a long time, as long as they meet the age requirement, satisfy the usual residency rules, meaning they've lived in Australia for at least 10 years in total, including at least 5 years in a row, pass the means test. Their past Australian residence counts towards the 10-year requirement. However, it's important to distinguish a genuine resumption of residency from a short visit. A person who intends to return to Australia for a defined period only, for example 2 years, would not be an Australian resident under the Social Security Act. For Social Security purposes, an Australian resident is defined as a person who resides in Australia and is either an Australian citizen, a permanent visa holder, or a protected New Zealand SCV holder with the intention of living in Australia long term. So what does that mean in practice? Centrelink might look for proof that you genuinely intend to stay in Australia. For returning retirees, that might include things like bringing your belongings back, finding a long-term place to live, and not keeping your main home overseas. Are there any exceptions to this rule? There is no discretionary power to allow portability of age pension during the 2-year period, unless under limited exceptions. 1. Former residents who were granted their pensions before 20th of September 2000 are subject to the old rules of 12 months restriction on portability, unless there are unforeseen circumstances. Second, the 2-year former resident waiting period does not apply if the person is eligible for financial assistance under the medical treatment overseas program in respect of their absence from Australia or needs to accompany such a person. Third, if a pension is granted under an international social security agreement or a recipient is transferred to an agreement pension, that pension is subject to the portability rules in that agreement. If you're planning to retire overseas, check out my other videos on how the age pension is taxed overseas and how the age pension works while overseas. That will give you the full detail. Thanks for watching. I'll see you over there.